Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Magicians. Holy crap, there's a lot to kind of break down about this episode, so let's break it down. Interestingly enough, Marina, I love that whole situation of her basically going to Fogg and hitting him with the same thing that he used on them to give them new lives, which is interesting. Many interesting things about that. One, obviously, we know there's the whole allocation of magic. Obviously, there's only so much given out to people. I didn't realize though it's room to room basis, because later on he brings up the fact is that oh yeah, magic's not working in the room because all the other reserves got used up, I'm assuming, by Penny traveling and Marina doing what she's doing. And it's that's so fascinating that it's broken down room by room. I mean, I guess that's probably how they do it at Breakbill. They, in particular, divide up the magic reserves that they have, from room to room so you can do stuff. I just think that's kind of interesting. But nevertheless, also that Fogg's reaction to all of this, it's oh man, I'm potentially going to lose who I am. So basically he goes out and he tries to fix everything. Not necessarily fix everything, but just kind of deal with everything that maybe he hadn't dealt with. The fact is he owed his booking money. The fact is he's hey, we're good drinking buddies. The dude's thanks. Even though we've only drank together twice, he's we're alcoholics. We drink by ourselves, so that when we actually break down and cry and stuff like that, it's not in front of other people, so it's not as embarrassing. And he's giving him all this liquor. He punches it dude because it's yeah, I slept with his wife. He didn't handle it well. He talks about the fact is that he's not very good at intimacy, bringing up his grandmother, not telling her how he really felt loving her and all that. And there's also the thing of his 40 different lives, some of which were comic, some of them very apocalyptic. Interestingly enough, I also love that Marina was kind of that joke now makes more sense, because I thought she was because he's what timeline are you from? And she's one where you owe me child support. I was oh, I thought she was referencing the fact is that they banged and stuff, and that's what it is. But it turns out later on, it's we get revealed, it's no, that's legitimately his daughter. It's geez, that's probably why they have the very complicated relationship they have. Because he kind of turned his back on her to a certain extent and stuff like that. But for him, it's I can't do this. I can't reverse this spell because I'll be putting their lives in danger, because they'll die otherwise. I'm sure it's probably to keep them hidden from the creature, but also, well, it seemed like the creature could potentially still find them anyway. I mean, it found Quentin even with the spell under, because how powerful it is. But it's probably also from Irene and the library, because it's if they knew the truth, it's this whole thing is the only thing keeping them alive in that regard. So they're a loose end in a certain regard, but because they don't remember anything, it's okay. So that's why they're kind of left alone, I think. So that all in itself is interesting. It's also interesting that Todd was kind of writing this whole situation down for Fogg, and he was and then when Julia comes and it's yeah, you're telling me I'm the only, you believe I'm supposed to be here, but but you're leaving. And then he's Todd, because he warned Todd not to say anything. I love that. I feel we're getting more Todd this season than we've gotten all throughout the series. I feel because Todd just always come and gone. He's always been in the background, but now it seems they're probably doing to him what they did to Josh. Because I feel last season they really pushed Josh forward, so I thought that was kind of pretty neat, making him part of the team and part of all of this. So, which we also learned that Josh's new persona, his biggest issue is having essentially a big dick. And he's just hey, there are issues that come with that. Also, apparently, Penny's new identity slept with his stepsister. And he's no, we didn't know, I swear. It's that's the problem of having all these different stepdads. Katie's situation is actually a little sad, because for her, it's oh no, I'm a hero, I do this, I did that, blah, and what she did as a cop. But for her, it's the reason why she has such an issue with it is because it felt fake, and it turns out it is fake, because I guess in her mind it's because I was just too perfect of a hero, and so now it's oh yeah, which is once again is interesting, because that character she is now, who she is now, that is the complete opposite of who she was, I mean, to a certain extent, Katie had her hero moments, but she was always this new her, it's kind of oh, I'm true justice, doing the right thing. It's Katie was always big time the reluctant hero, so I thought it's just kind of interesting. Then Margot meets Lord Fresh. Of course, that's awesome. apparently her birthright box told him of everything that was happening. It's actually kind of sad because Margot's situation, it's like, oh, everything leading up to this point is told me. And it also says that Margot is going to learn what it's like to rule alone. And that could be interpreted many ways. That could be like, yeah, Elliot's never coming back potentially, because Elliot, you know, is part of her like council, kind of serving by her side and everything. So it could be reference to that, you know. Also, it could be reference to the fact is that, you know, whereas, you know, the whole thing of like Elliot was supposed to never, you know, be able to leave Fillory. He was supposed to stay there forever. That kind of makes it go like, is that same thing going to happen to Margot, where she can actually never go back eventually? Like when it's all said and done, she's going to have to rule, or like, what does that mean? Whatever it is, it seems like they're setting up Margot's story to potentially be sad. That's probably something that's not going to really pay off until like near the end of the season. Maybe we'll see in the end, but that's kind of interesting. And then like, you know, a lot of interesting things went down in Fillory. For one, there's a whole thing of like, oh yeah, Margot being there and being like, yeah, I'm Margot. And it's like, whoa, stop. Don't even say her name because crap starts going wrong. We see Finn and Tick. I also love Tick, like, you know, when he's talking about Ember potentially, he's like, oh, how great and amazing it is, just in case Ember's listening. And part of me was like, that SOB is alive? I thought that whole thing inside of Margot's head was like a little something he left. I thought that was the whole point. It's like, no, that SOB is actually alive. It's like, oh, what a dick. It's like, of course, I was like, of course he faked his death. You know, he probably thought it'd be more fun and entertaining that way. But it turns out, lo and behold, he's not actual. I also love, really quickly, Margot being like, honestly, I got to tell you guys, I kind of don't give a shit about your whole situation. Finn's like, oh, okay. But it's like, Margot helps anyway. But it turns out it's not actually the real Ember. It's like, yeah, he's super dead. Because I was about to say, if he's alive, wouldn't Umber still be alive? But it turns out, no. I was like, okay. Because I was like, I mean, like I said, the only thing I could think of was like, not unless, you know, gods are good at faking their deaths, because it's like, can they come back or something like that? Which we'll get to that in a second too. But it turns out it's Bacchus, the party god, because interestingly enough, it turns out like, obviously, you know, Finn references it being like, yeah, there's always been what you people from Earth call a little opium in the air. If I remember, and I've always held on to this little detail because I always thought it was such a fascinating thing ever since they brought up in season 1, that Quentin, if I remember correctly, the percentage is like 0.2% opium in the air, because he always talked about how kind of fucked up it is that, you know, you can't help but like Fillory because there's a little bit of drugs in the air to kind of make you addicted to it. So I always thought that was such a fascinating aspect. I think that percentage is right. I could be wrong about that. But it turns out the percentage got knocked up in the air. And now, you know, it's causing problems. Hey, people get a little giddy. They dance around naked. But people have also been falling asleep in the wrong places. And they end up getting trampled. It seems like that's kind of like the most common death amongst people. So it's like, yeah, we need to fix that. So they brought Margot to... you know, try and, you know, beseeched, you know, Ember to fix all that. Which, interestingly enough, this kind of answered some of my questions from last episode, like how far does this glamour reach? It's not like, so my understanding is who they were, like everyone's original identities, who they are, isn't completely erased, because everyone on Fillory knew who Margot was. It's not like, oh, who's Margot? It's like, oh, hi, King. So it's there. It's just, you know, anytime you scratch at that real identity, shit goes haywire around you. So I'm wondering, is that purely just a Fillory thing, or did that kind of apply everywhere? Because in the they haven't really used anyone else's names. Like, obviously, you've been scratching at their identities. Or to be fair, it's like, obviously Fogg knows everyone, but I thought that was just potentially, you know, in my head, I'm like, I thought that was just kind of a byproduct of him being the one who casts a spell and stuff like that. But to be fair, it's like, no, like, their identities, who they really are, is always there, just no one else knows. I mean, I guess the whole thought is like, oh, they're just off doing some things. Like, you probably wouldn't notice that they're missing, really, because, I mean, they're never really always at school. The main squad characters were followed. So I guess that's kind of the thought process behind it. I can only assume Bacchus, kind of getting back to it, is here in Fillory because he's trying to run away from the thing that's in Elliot. That thing's a god killer, and then gods are scared shitless of it. That's why they had it locked up. So it's like, of course, because it's like, why is he in Fillory pretending to be Ember? It's like, because he's a party god and everything, but I think it's also because he's running scared. Like, that's the only thing I can assume. And he's sending Margot back to Earth because it's like, oh, like, I don't want you here, because like Margot being High King would kind of threaten his rule a little bit. So I think he needs to go somewhere where he can do what he wants to without being afraid of that thing, potentially. Like, it might track him down, I think. Because he's like, who are you really, is what Finn asks. And he's like, it doesn't matter, I'm a god, that's all that matters. Which is interesting, because it's like, it seems like he's always kind of done his own thing, so why now? To be fair, it's interesting, because I guess that's what made him decide to do this now, too, because he learned from Quentin and Julia last season that, Ember was dead, so I guess that's what made him decide, oh, this dude's dead, I don't really know him that well, so it's like, oh, let me just take over who he is, so that's my thought. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe it's also Bacchus is like, well, this world's about a god, so I can shape it and do whatever I want to with it. That might actually be his main motive, but I think he's running for his life, especially because this thing is hunting the gods, because we end up seeing this episode, it's looking for the god of war. It's like, don't call him Ares, because apparently he doesn't like that. But it was interesting too, because Quentin's like, you know what? You can kill me, go ahead. But it's like, I'm not going to kill you. I would never do that. And then it breaks his arm, because it's like, I'll make you suffer, but I'll never kill you. I like you too much. And so it's looking for something. Like, I think it doesn't really know for sure what it is, but apparently the gods took something from it a very long time ago. A kind of part of it that knew something. I guess like part of its memories were potentially taken away. I guess something was taken away, and along with the memories of it potentially. Maybe it's not just its memories, but also memories of this particular thing have kind of been wiped from its memory. So it's like, I don't know what it is that was taken from me, but I know it was taken from me. There's something missing inside. Maybe like, maybe something or someone was taken from it potentially. But there's all that. Then there's, there's also a line in this episode I really like where, like, Penny was like, I don't know why you're helping us, but thanks. And Marina's like, me, I'm a good person. I help people, for no good reason, kind of like trying to make it seem like she's such a pure and good person. I literally laughed. I was like, that's funny. Like, I'm surprised you're able to tell that lie with such a straight face. Like, that is the thing. Like, what is her ulterior motive? Was it just to go after Fog, or was it like something else? Like, what is she planning on getting out of this? She is living this life or whatever. So, did I bring that up earlier? I think I did. I talked about it. I don't remember. I brought up, the whole Marina being his daughter situation. Yeah, I did. I think. God, I'm blanking out a little bit. I'm wondering what led to them kind of falling apart like that. I guess that also comes down to, like, what is, like, Marina's family situation, like, in particular, like, her mom and stuff like that. She alive, still in the picture, potentially. I don't know. I guess that's why he always did what he did to her, like, kind of, like, kick her out, because it's like, oh, here you are, trying to, break the rules. So it's kind of, I guess, to not show bias. I guess it was kind of his way of trying to teach her a lesson, that, like, no one's above the rules and stuff like that, potentially. Nevertheless, going back to what I was bringing up, obviously, this also brought up something I never would have thought of either. It's like, magic is in rations, right? And the show answered it. Answered a question I didn't even think to ask. And that's, how the hell is Fog casting a spell that's constantly in use when he doesn't have, like, the magic to kind of constantly keep it up, because the spell doesn't crack? So it's like, because it turns out he has a battery. I'm assuming it's one of Mayakovsky's. And then it's also like, where the hell is Mayakovsky? We haven't seen him since last season when he got turned into that bear by Emily. What the hell ever happened to him? Maybe we'll might potentially see him this season. I don't know. It's kind of actually interesting, because, like, he's referenced, but you don't see him at all last season either. So, like I said, when we did see him, he was a bear. But, yeah, it turns out that's how Henry was doing it. And then Julia kept touching it and getting killed. Now, that was a question I'm wondering about. Does the spell protect them from potentially dying? Because that was the whole point of the spell anyway, to protect them from getting killed. So did Henry kind of add on a little something where it constantly brought them back to life? Or is it what I thought last episode, where it's like some of that god magic is still inside of Julia, and that kept bringing her back to life? I don't know. Like, obviously she ends up breaking the battery and in turn breaking the spell. So the question it becomes like we'll see eventually if she can keep coming back like that. Does that mean it's I guess maybe it's like, I don't know, because I feel like I guess it also depends on how you die. Because I'm curious about that. Because like apparently, because that was the thing. Like she used up all of her godhood to remake the keys last season. So it's like that's why I was wondering. Like because she hasn't really been using magic at all this entire time she's been living this new life. So it's like it's slowly been building back up, hasn't it? Potentially, I don't know. Because it's interesting too. Because Fogg said a line I thought was kind of interesting. He was like, I'm glad to have finally got you at Breakbills to be a teacher to you. Because I was like, right. Because in every timeline, Julia's always been a student of his. That was the difference between, in timeline 40 is that Julia never went to Breakbills. So he never got to teach Julia at the very least, every other timeline he did. And this is Julia's a little bit different, so there's that. But I think there's also the aspect of, I guess that also answered my question too, like, because the moment Fogg left, they still remembered Fogg and stuff like that. So it answered my question. It's just, this, now I'm sitting here processing it all. It's like, oh yeah. So it's just simply like, oh, they probably didn't realize like, oh yeah, this happened to our main heroes, like the main characters and stuff like that. Realizing, so it's like, oh, your new people who showed up and stuff like, oh, these people's identities are hidden. You wouldn't automatically correlate to like, hey, those are students are missing, those main characters. We haven't seen them for a while. And you guys, people with new identities and stuff, who cares? It's that type of thing. So it's just, I didn't think about that. So, it's still, kind of reworked everything, reality to kind of fit their new lives and everything. It's actually kind of interesting because, on certain regards where like, Etta, who is, Henry, Fogg's Taylor. Interestingly enough, it's the actress who played Audrey in Twin Peaks. I was like, nevertheless, she actually said something interesting about Fogg, where it's basically all the jackets and shirts, because he's very self-loathing. It's like, I feel like I didn't catch that much in season 1, but as the show is going on, it's like, you realize how much Fogg really dislikes himself. I thought that was more so the byproduct of like, oh yeah, having lived 40 different lives like that. I mean, potentially that could be part of it, but it's like he is a very self-loathing dude. Holy crap. But aside from that, like the thing is he wears armor, to protect himself from people so people don't really see that he cares, which in actuality he does. He doesn't always show it, but I think, because he does a lot of self-loathing, but he does kind of have a big heart, and we kind of see that with Julia, because he thinks that she can be the one to fix everything, because for him it's like, because I think he feels responsible too, because it's like, not only did he take magic from these students of his, but it's also, he literally took their lives from them. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, everything that who they were, like, yes, it was for their own good, but still, like, he took that from them. Plus, he also betrayed them too, the whole thing in season 3's finale, so there's that too, so. But Julia ended up breaking the spell, and now everyone's back to who they were, including Quentin. Now, that interesting thing between him and, the thing inside of LA, it's like, oh, I'm so glad to have you back. And he's like, so when you, kind of get what you want from the gods, because I guess, because, Quentin's crossed his paths with gods too and kind of knows how they can be. So he's a little more understanding about the creature's plight. But then it's like, wait, he's like, so when it's all said and done, could you potentially give us Elliot back? And he's like, the one who tried to kill me? Wait, you like him more than me. You like all your friends, don't you? And now it's potentially going to go, oh, just to prove a point, it's going to go and kill everyone now so that Quentin has no one but it. This thing is very, to be fair, it's kind of like a child. All it does, it's want. That's the whole point. And so it wants all of Quentin's undivided attention. So it's going to kill everyone just to make that point, get that point across. So that's going to be interesting. And also, I didn't talk about it, but Margot's going to have to go back to Lord Fresh for her birthright box at some point in time. Like, she's going to have to go back to Fillory, but considering Blockus, he might have blocked it so no one could get to Fillory like that. So, we'll see in the end what ends up happening with that. But there's also the Alice situation. That was kind of interesting. Using the tubes that kind of transport stuff, she was able to kind of, use the magic, and she used it to follow the bug. Also, interesting enough, that whole conversation with Santa, I love, where he's just kind of like, yeah, at one point in time, I was kind of a fairly trustworthy person, but then the whole thing of, breaking into people's house once a year, getting kids to sit on your lap, a little creepy, and it's kind of like Earth ruined the whole Santa thing, everything. I was like, that's so interesting, because I always thought that's kind of fascinating, like when you break down like how messed up like some like fairy tales or like stories are in that regard, or just like, yeah, Santa's a little messed up with the whole thing, only breaking into your house, and like, oh, some, you know, so it's just funny that the magicians took that dark approach. You're like, yeah, there's some questionable things about Santa in that regard, you know. So I just thought that was kind of funny, but Alice ended up finding a chimney, and it's like, hey, you can kind of break into any chimney. And he's like, I haven't found one I haven't been able to, so that's going to be their way out. It's kind of interesting. Are we going to get like an Alice and Santa buddy cop adventure? Not buddy cop adventure, but like that's definitely going to be an interesting adventure if that ends up being the case. So things are taking a very fascinating turn. I'm so curious to see how this all plays out, where this is all heading, because like, once again, this is a thing. This creature is something that even the gods are scared of. Probably potentially can't kill, considering the fact is they just had it simply locked up. So how are our heroes going to handle this? And obviously, like, they're probably going to get all reunited and stuff, because they also have to do this trying to save Elliot too. So that's something to kind of be considered. So, and also Fogg, after all that, still ends up being himself. So, which, you know, there's a good side and bad side to that, because the bad side being like, oh yeah, like now he's still himself, which is kind of, you know, kind of a morbid and sad situation just because of the whole self-loathing thing. But I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about today. So we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good